Well, it's officially June, and that means Google I/O is around the corner. That also means that we're going to be hearing a lot more about Android Wear. I mean, just look at how much the G Watch was played up at the recent LG event. And with all that in mind, I decided to get back to the smartwatch game and don my trusty Pebble once again. And while its operating system may not necessarily be based on Android, it certainly does enhance the Android experience. So some of you out there have been wanting to know, so this is Joshua Vergara from Android Authority, and this is how I Android with my Pebble smartwatch. Now, before I actually get into it, you did hear me say that I just got back into the smartwatch game. Well, the reason for that is because I actually haven't worn my Pebble in quite a while. I actually haven't had really anything on my wrist for a little while. But when I wanted to wear my Pebble once again, I decided to change up the look a little bit. You might remember that grunge cuff that I used all the time. Well, I changed that up by finding a wide body band by Richard Tracy brand, and you can see it right here. Now what I got is the silicone version off Amazon, which means it can get wet and it is actually pretty soft and really comfortable. So if you've noticed in the last couple of videos, that's the strap that I've been rocking on my Pebble, and it now pretty much never leaves my wrist. So let's start off with the simplest of the simple, watch faces. For the longest time, I never really installed any watch faces on my Pebble because the built-in text watch was already good enough for me already. But recently I've changed my tune, in one case because the design of the watch face was really good, and in the other case because I needed some extra functionality and utility out of it. I'll start with Digitime, which is a simple but stylistic way of displaying the time. The 24-hour format is shown with the hour in the middle and the numbers appearing accordingly in the circle around it. It's to the point, simple, and looks pretty damn cool. Hitting down to simply move to the next watch face brings up battery lifetime. Now the Pebble can go for days before needing a charge, but it doesn't show you the battery level unless it's under something like 15%. I'd rather know ahead of time if I need my Pebble charger with me when, let's say, traveling for a few days, so having battery lifetime allows me to see the total percentage left as well as the supposed number of days that it will last on a charge. That number of days is actually pretty arbitrary, but I found it pretty accurate for my own usage. The first actual app I'm going to show you, I feel, addresses an issue that a lot of people tend to try and fix the moment they get their Pebbles, and that's the notifications. The Notification Center has been given an update with the 2.0 and 2.1 firmware that allows you to look back at the history of the notifications that have come to your watch, which is great. But you might need a little bit more control, and that's the reason why we have a lot of notification replacement applications. The one that I use is the Notification Center, which allows you to completely pick which applications will send their notices to the Pebble and which ones should not. For example, I don't need my wrist to blow up for every person who likes my photo on Instagram, so I usually leave it off. For even further control, you can set keywords in the regex filters area that the app will look for. Any notification with those keywords will not be routed. And all of this is done in the companion app that has to be installed on your actual phone. Further options allow you to change the look of the notifications themselves as well as set quiet hours. And if you ever get a Pebble, make sure you set quiet hours for when you're, say, asleep, because it actually does help with your battery life. This next app can easily be considered another essential, especially for all you media people. It's called Music Boss. Basically, it's a robust media remote control that can customize the built-in music controller in your Pebble, or you can use its version instead. I keep it set to just use the original built-in controller because already adding things like double pressing buttons for volume control or to change which media player it's controlling provide the extras that I require already. Music Boss also requires that an app be installed and set up on your phone, basically so it knows what applications it should be controlling, and also so you can have a hub for customizing the experience. Now, this next app might not be essential for everybody, but it certainly has become so for me. The last time that I used my Pebble as extensively as I am right now, there wasn't really an application quite like this that allowed you to look at navigation on your watch. Now, the app is called NavMe, and it does require you to install an application on your phone as well, primarily so that it can detect when navigation is being run, and it costs $2.99 after you do a 7-day trial. But $2.99 is a small price to pay when you have your next moves in navigation being shown on your watch, so you don't have to fidget with your phone. A vibration when you are certain distances away from the next move give you ample warning to check so that you don't miss your turn. And if anything, this is a lot better than listening to the navigation voice when it interrupts your music. As we get into perhaps slightly less essential applications, I wanted to give you the multi-timer. Now, for some people out there, timers are very important for our daily lives, especially if you need to have a bunch of them running at once, and that's exactly what the multi-timer does. The primary uses I have for it are for the Pomodoro technique, for example. If you don't know already, the Pomodoro technique is a time management method where you set a timer for 25 minutes and only focus on the one thing you need to focus on for that whole amount of time. When done, you can take a 5-minute break and catch up with your distractions. After doing a certain number of Pomodoros, you can take a longer break of maybe 15 minutes. So as you can see here, I have 2 timers for the 25-minute work period and the 5-minute rest period. And then I have another timer set for 3 minutes when I'm brewing cups of tea. The best part about this multi-timer is that it tries to store the timer data in the memory of the watch, so you can leave the app for a bit and when you come back it hasn't reset. This is a problem that tends to plague plenty of timer apps out there, as data storage isn't all that easy on the fly on the Pebble. Now, if there's one thing I have a lot of trouble with these days, it's getting up early. One thing that I really wish I could do is just get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, be able to go to the gym right away, and then get started with my entire day, but it doesn't always happen. But at the very least, I do have apps to try and help me. And now, while the Sleep as Android application doesn't necessarily succeed every single time, the Watch app certainly enhances what could be the thing that gets me up in the morning. Install the Watch app, and when you select it in your Pebble, the phone app sleep tracking will use the watch data with the gyroscope built in to track your sleep. When your alarm goes off, the watch will vibrate when your phone goes nuts. At the very least, not needing to have the phone by your side when you're sleeping is a big plus, but the powerful vibration of the watch will bother you enough to at least open your eyes. But what if you're an incessant snoozer? Well, you can set a limit to the number of times you can snooze inside of the phone app, but sometimes you need more of a boost. Sleep as Android on the phone allows you to set CAPTCHA tests, like shaking the phone a number of times or answering a few math questions before you can actually turn off the alarm. I go for a slightly more unorthodox method, QR codes. Normally, you'd get out of bed and walk to somewhere that you've printed and stamped a QR code on the wall, like your bathroom, and scan that to turn off the alarm. But instead, I installed a QR generator on my Pebble and made it so that I have to scan 4 different codes before the alarm will shut the hell up. An added bonus to the QR generator of the Pebble is a business card section where you can have people scan that particular code to get whatever information you need to give them. It helps when you run out of business cards to hand out. And so, there you have it, how I Android with the Pebble smartwatch. Essentially, we're going to be seeing a lot of smartwatches in the coming months and the coming weeks, especially with Google I/O coming up and Android Wear really blowing up probably from that particular conference. And what I wanted to illustrate here is, even if it's not Android Wear, the Pebble is an example of how when you take the time to cater an experience on a wearable to what you really need it to be, it could become just as invaluable as a regular watch that you would wear on your wrist anyway. Even with the G-Watch and the Moto 360 on the horizon, I will say that the Pebble has once again claimed the real estate on my wrist. But will those smartwatches replace the Pebble as my go-to everyday wearable? Well, we're not too sure about that yet, but you can stay tuned to Android Authority and I'll give you my answer, whatever it is, either way, and the reasons why. So keep it tuned to Android Authority for all of the best coverage, including all of the coverage from my brothers in Android, Joe, Jace, Kevin the Tech Ninja, and Lon. After that, drop us some likes, drop us a subscribe if you haven't already, and keep it tuned to AndroidAuthority.com because we are your source for all things Android.